Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I've got a very interesting and important topic for you today. Washington, D.C. Is this just about removing the crime, or is this the beginning of the massive arrests? Are they about to start? Now, before I get started, I want to say that I love you guys. I know that sometimes I feel like I'm talking to the wind, sitting here talking to a little light on the camera, but I know there's a lot of you out there, and you love the Lord Jesus, and you love his prophecies, and you love the things that he's doing. We don't want to see our nation fall, but at the same time, we love truth more than we love a lie. And so I just want to say I love you and appreciate you. And there have been times where we've been in a jam and I've asked you for help and you responded. Now, there's a couple of things I need to say because there's been some changes in our ministry and the way it works. I didn't exactly want those changes, but nevertheless, they've happened. So I had to make myself some notes or I wouldn't even be able to say this. First of all, if you've watched this entire program or other programs, if you typically watch most of them, then I'm going to call you the faithful. You are a watchman. Nobody could watch Prophecy Club for too long unless they really are called to be a watchman. I want you to understand that we no longer offer DVDs. It used to be there was a time when DVDs and books was what carried our ministry. But we haven't made a new DVD since 2012. So what does that mean? Well, for a while, that support burden was switched over to our sponsors. But, I talk about EMP Shield, but we get almost no orders. Why? I guess that people already have them. Same thing with Joseph Kitchen. So I'm going to say the sponsors only help a little and only once in a while. I want you to understand that. So if you do follow this ministry, at least occasionally, then I would suggest it would be proper before the Lord that you support it occasionally. On the other hand, if you're one that follows it faithfully, it would make sense to me that you would support it faithfully. And I'm not going to tell you what that is. That may be weekly, but probably at least monthly or maybe every other month. We are at our minimum. In other words, this is the minimum that we need to keep in the account. If we don't have it up to that minimum, that at any one day it could pop down into the red. And we are at our minimum, but we've been at our minimum for the last week. But God has sustained. But if you can help us, that would be nice. Now, concerning crypto, I have not been able to get any crypto yet because, we're at a minimum and we just can't. Matter of fact, they asked me, do we have any extra to put towards Honduras? No. We don't have any extra toward anything, but thank you. I did get a $1,000 donation today specifically for crypto. So I'm going to put that $1,000 toward crypto. Who knows? Maybe that, I think crypto, I think that it's going to be the difference. It's going to be that link between the death of the dollar and the rise of the digital system. I think crypto, I don't know, and I'm not giving financial advice. I think probably crypto is going to be that thing that keeps us out of the begging lines, out of lines where we're standing begging bread and something like that. It could be because we know we're going digital. And so this is kind of an interim digital. That's just my guess. All right, so on with our topic today. So this is now old news by the time you read this, and that's not my point. I'm not trying to bring you the latest news. You got more recent news than I have. Washington, D.C. will be liberated today. Crime, savagery, filth, and scum will disappear. I will make our capital great again. The days of ruthlessly killing or hurting innocent people are over. I quickly fixed the border. I'm going to quickly fix our crime. Now, is that all he's saying? Or, as prophecy students, are you reading between those lines? Are you seeing something more? Because I am. Let's look further. Again, this is today, August 10th. I'm recording this on the 11th. Trump deploys 120 FBI agents to fight D.C. crime, weighs 1,000 National Guard. The next article says, yes, he is taking over the D.C. police, and we're going to talk about that. He is sending in the National Guard. Now, okay, I understand the D.C. police. I understand the National Guard for crime. What I don't understand is, why do you send 120 FBI agents in? I can't help but wonder if it's more than just crime. I can't help but wonder if it's not for criminals like congressmen, senators, bankers, big business people, people that have had a sealed indictment, some of them for years, waiting for the time when the massive arrest, and I'm not talking about illegal immigrants, I'm talking about American citizens that have made billions of dollars off of the backs of American people. So I looked it up, and Grok, by the way, is wrong. So you can see my question to Grok. Is the District of Columbia Home Rule Act limited to 30 days? And it says it does not have a 30-day limitation. It is a permanent piece of federal legislation, including the creation. Well, I think it misunderstood the question. So, what can and can't Trump do? I thought this was a very good article. So it says, Trump said he's taking control of the D.C. police. Can he do that? The article, I think, is correct, and it says yes, with limits. The Home Rule Act gives him the power to use the D.C. police force. Now, let me stop. See, there's, 80 years ago, something like that, they set up 3 cities that would not be part of any nation. The City of London, the city called Vatican, and the city called Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is not part of the United States. The City of London and the Vatican are not, City of London is not part of England. The Vatican is not part of Italy. It's a separate little country, and it's controlled by the international bankers. Wait a minute. Yes, I know the Pope gives the kings their crowns. Yes, I understand that. Okay, so what is actually going on here? Well, it's all part of being able to rip the world off from lots and lots of money and funnel it into the hands of the international bankers, which I'm not going into right now. Let's get back to this article. It's got an important point. So the Home Rule Act gives the power to use the D.C. police force for federal purposes if he, the president, determines that there are special conditions of emergency nature. He can use the D.C. police for up to 48 hours and for up to 30 days if he sends a special message, but that's not a problem. He's got the Congress in his pocket. He can basically have control for as long as he wants to. And he says he has to get authorization. Not a problem. He'll get the authorization. The article goes on to say Trump also said he's deploying National Guard troops to D.C. Can he do that? The answer is yes. Trump has more authority over the D.C. National Guard than he has over the other 50 states. Why? Because D.C. is not part of America. D.C. is just what it says, the District of Columbia. It's not part of the United States. The D.C. Guard is always under the direct control of the president. Article says, aren't there limits on using the military for domestic law enforcement? Yes. But those limits might not apply to the D.C. National Guard. Why? Because it's not part of the United States. The Trump administration is currently on trial in Los Angeles over its deployment of the California Guard in June to quell immigration-related protests in that city. Remember the No King protests, all that sort of stuff. The trial will test whether a federal judge believes Trump's deployment ran afoul of the 1878 law and must be rescinded. Well, it's already been tested in one court, and I remember hearing that Trump won that. And they may not have the updated information. That may be talking about how Trump has already won and they just don't know it. Anyway, it goes on to say at the bottom, George Bush could use the D.C. Guard to carry out law enforcement missions in D.C. as part of the so-called war on drugs. Now, he's got a good reason. So he says, you can see the chart here, London, Delhi, Havana, Paris, Ottawa, Lima, and you look at how many deaths, how many murders there are in Washington, D.C. It's the murder capital of the world. And it's supposed to be a good, clean American city. What's going on? Now, I'm going to talk to you for a minute. I'm going to back up and I'm going to give you my opinion. In November, and I've covered this a lot, but I'm only just doing it off the top of my head today, because sometimes I'll say some things to put things together for you when I don't have notes that I wouldn't normally say. So, November of 2017, Trump signed an executive order that gave him the authority to begin to arrest people that do two things wrong: either human rights abuses, pedophilia, and things like that, child trafficking, human trafficking, and the second thing is for corruption. Shortly after that, John Huber was hired, and he hired 450, quote, dogged investigators, and they went out and they started investigating people. And as a result, the sealed indictments started going up. Now, normally there's 125 to 350 sealed indictments across the 50 states at any one point. But at last check, if you go to bad-boys.us, you can look at it. And there's like 500,000 sealed indictments. If you spend a few minutes on this site and you click around on it and you see, oh boy, they're not kidding. They really got some evidence here. Now, what does that mean? That means there's 500,000 people that have a sealed indictment. What's a sealed indictment? Well, it's an arrest warrant that just hasn't been served yet, because they know that as soon as they start these arrests of high people, like maybe even Obama, Clinton's, Pelosi's, people like that, that then all the rest of the cockroaches are going to run for the border, and they're going to try to get away because they know they're guilty. So he's got to do it. Trump's got to do it in a way to where he catches them and they can't get away. They can't get out of the net, okay? So you get the fish in your net, but you got to get him into your boat, okay? And Trump says he's got him in his net, but he's got to get him into the boat. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, I thought June 14th was the perfect opportunity, because we had some 1,800 cities that were under the No King protests. And of course, there was a big protest in Los Angeles. That would have been a perfect time for him to sign the Insurrection Act of 1871, I believe is the date, and then start the massive arrest. I was watching for it, but it didn't happen. But maybe it wasn't time. Maybe they still had some more people they had to investigate. Now, what has happened since then? We saw Tulsi Gabbard get on the national news here in the last 2 weeks and basically say, Obama did it, and so did this guy and this guy and this guy. And she listed all of the things. Well, to me, I think that's saying we're getting pretty close to massive arrests. Now, let's go back to the sealed indictments. Okay, so the whole story was in 1963 when JFK, and by the way, I can't prove what I'm about to say, but I've read it a lot on the internet, and I've got confirmation from people in high places that are in positions to know that say it's true. Anyway, so in 1963, when the cabal, which is short for the Moloch and Baal worshippers, the international bankers that think they own and control the world, when they killed JFK, the military intelligence in America knew who really did it. And they said, we're tired of this secret organization, this group of international bankers just killing our people, thinking that they can rule the world and do what they want to do. But we've got to put a stop to them, but it's not going to be easy. And so they started a plan in 1963, and they've been working on that plan since then. And they thought, okay, there's two ways to do this. We can do it from the ground up in a bloody revolution, or we can take the presidency and do it from the top down and do it all legally. They decided to take it top down. So they found 10 potentials. They finally went to Donald Trump and they said, and remember, Donald Trump used to be a Democrat. Now, I can't prove this either. My suggestion, my suspicion is that he changed from being a Democrat to becoming a Republican when they showed him evidence. I think they showed him people in high places that everybody beloved, and they showed them evidence that these people are corrupt. Child trafficking, pedophilia, all sorts of things. And I think that's when he switched from being Democrat to Republican. But they said to him, we want to take it down. And he said, well, would I report to you? Do you report to me? And they said, no, 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 we report to you. And he said, then I'll do it. Shortly after that, he came down the escalator and then went to work becoming the President of the United States. But of course, there was a lot of resistance, and he wasn't able to do everything he wanted to do in the first term. So here he is back in the second term. And I think that a lot of the planning that they did really happened in the 4 years when Biden was in charge, or Biden is probably correct. O was really running it with Biden doing the auto pen. Anyway, so Trump came in and he hit the ground running as soon as he was inaugurated. He was actually working before then. And the plan is for them to get all of these arrest warrants and then round them up quickly before they can escape. They've got this southern border, basically from the Gulf of Mexico all the way over to the Pacific Ocean, all sealed off. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a 60-yard or 60-meter, I forget, wide strip from El Paso all the way out to the Pacific Ocean that belongs to the military. Why the military? And the military is there because when these arrests takes place, it's not going to be D.C. police. It's not going to be the National Guard. Those would all be civil arrests. It's going to be the Marines. It's going to be military because Trump will sign the Insurrection Act that gives him the authority to use the military to go after these people. And when he does that, then they have to take them onto military land or a military boat. Then they're tried in a military tribunal in front of 3 judges. Yes, they can appeal, but it's pretty much just wasting your time. So I've given this before, but again, I'm talking off the top of my head. But it was a couple of years ago. I was waking up from a nap, and it was on my heart to come on and say, well, I guess all these massive arrests aren't going to happen. But as I awakened, I heard 4 words: massive arrests, massive arrests. Why did it repeat? Because the Bible says in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let a thing be established. So I think that was God telling me, yes, absolutely, positively, you can count on it. There is going to be massive arrests. Now, when do I know, or when do I think the massive arrests are going to start? I think it's very, very soon. I do not know exactly when, and I guess if I knew, then probably my life would be in danger. I don't know. But I watch the prophecies, I watch the events, and here it is. Trump is now bringing where he's in control of the police, he's in control of the National Guard, and he has also brought in 120 FBI. But all of that is civil. But that would be a good place to start. I mean, those people could start arresting people, but eventually they've got to get to the military courts. They've got to be tried in military courts, is my understanding. So that's where we're actually going with this. What do I think? I think that it's going to make a lot of people mad. Let's take, for example, Obama. Now, I don't know about Comey and some of those other guys, just how beloved they are, but Obama or Biden, there's a lot of people that really, really love those people. And if those people got arrested, you can rest assured there would be pictures, there would be video of Obama with handcuffs on. And I'm not going to say, whether he can or can't be arrested. That's not the point. I'm saying that a lot of these arrests will be arresting some very popular, very beloved people. And that, my brothers and sisters, is probably going to be what starts the internal revolution. Now, what do I think is going to happen? I think that when the internal revolution starts, just about, as far as I know, the one voice that has been consistent since 1987, since I heard the warning, to blast out Dimitri Duduman's name and the fall of America will start with an internal revolution. When those prophecies God gave my wife Leslie begin to come to pass, as he told me June 27th of 2008, when those prophecies that gave your wife begin to come to pass, people from all directions begin to turn and listen to your ministry. I don't know when that starts, but I'm pretty sure that one message I've carried now for 32 years is the internal revolution. When that internal revolution starts, there's going to be a lot of people through the years have heard Prophecy Club. They've heard me tell that warning, along with Dimitri Duduman. For 10 years, north, south, east, and west, traveled all across America on radio, TV, churches, giving that warning. There will be a lot of people that say, wait a minute. The Holy Spirit's going to bring it back to their memory. And when all of those prophecies start, there's going to be a lot of people turn to this ministry and start listening to it. And someplace in there, we're going to be in sports stadiums. Someplace in there, we're going to see miracles like no one has ever seen. I can tell you another little story. Probably, 4 years ago, Leslie and I grabbed a little quick vacation. We're under a lot of pressure. And so we heard that if you call some of these cruise ships at the last minute, you can get a fill-in room for song and a dance. So we were up to our eyeballs one time, and we got a 3-day cruise, and it went to Cancun. Now, let me get to the point. So we took one of the little excursions that took us over to some beach in Cancun. As my job was to get someone to come over and dig a hole in the sand and put up one of those umbrellas. Leslie said, I got to go use the bathroom. Well, we had a really nice pair of binoculars we bought, probably 25 years ago. And as I sat down, I saw this boat fly up like an emergency situation. And if you can put the brakes on our boat, it did. And this little skinny guy jumped out and flopped this middle-aged Mexican lady over out of the boat onto the deck. And he immediately jumped out of the boat and started giving her chest compressions, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And about that time, I see this other guy running as fast and hard as he can, carrying this bright orange toolbox. And he runs out, and they both give this woman mouth-to-mouth and chest compressions, trying to bring her. They worked on her so hard, her top came off. But see, it was so far out on the dock that most of the people on the beach didn't even know what's going on. They couldn't see it. But Stan had the binoculars, and I could see everything going on. And the Lord kept speaking to my heart and saying, go pray for her. And I thought, this is another country. It's Mexico. I don't even know, I don't know the customs. I don't know. What would I do? Just walk up and say, can I pray for her? That's very awkward. And so I talked myself out of doing it. Now, the lady died. Fast forward. About 2 years ago, now I'm playing racquetball. One of the guys said, hey, man, did you hear what happened to, we'll call him Bob. I won't say his real name. Did you hear what happened to Bob? No. He said, yeah, he had to go have some stents put in his heart. Really? Well, a few minutes later, the guy walked up. Say, man, tell me about it. What happened? You had something to do with your heart? He said, yeah. I went over to my son. He's a fireman. He put me on that EKG, and they said, you need to go see a doctor. He says, okay. He said, no, you understand. Get in the car. We're driving you to the emergency room right now. Well, within 45 minutes of hitting the emergency room, he had 3 stents in his heart. And I said, then what are you doing up here playing racquetball? Well, I'm just going to hit the ball just around a little bit. Well, 10 minutes later, I see him out on the court, and he's playing. The next day, or I guess a couple of days later, I'm up playing racquetball again, and my buddy is playing racquetball. I was actually taking a lesson, and he says, man, something's going on outside. So I walked out, and my buddy, Bob, is laying on his back. His eyes had almost popped out onto his cheek. His tongue was 3 times bigger. I didn't know your tongue could swell that big. I didn't know your eye, but your brain is actually in a vacuum. And if something breaks that vacuum, your eyes can actually pop out onto your cheeks. I mean, literally. And his eyes were popped out. Long story short, a muscle guy came up and gave him chest compressions. He wore out, and I got my finger down his mouth trying to hold him over, his tongue back so he could breathe. There was no pulse, no breath in him. And the muscle guy wore out on chest compressions. Another nurse walked up, gave him chest compressions. She wore out, went back to the muscle guy, and finally they just stopped. They just stopped. I stopped too. I pulled my finger out of his mouth. I realized he was gone. Now there's about 12 people standing around us looking down. And so just very quietly, I thought, he's a Christian. I know he would want me to pray for him. So I just calmly, quietly reached over and laid my hands on him. And I said, Lord, bring him back in Jesus. I didn't get to the word name. As soon as I said the name above every name, as soon as I said Jesus, he took a deep breath. His eyes are blinking. I felt his neck. I said, he's alive. He's alive. He's got pulse now. I'm about out of time, and I want to say, I think that God was showing me, Stan, I'm giving you the authority to bring people back to life. I'm giving you the authority to do great miracles in my name. I think that's the reason he did that. And I think that there is a time when these massive arrests start. It's going to start the internal revolution. There's going to be a time of, as he told me, as the judgment hits, so will my miracles. Miracles like no one has seen, going back to Adam and Eve. I believe that when that internal revolution starts, we're going to see, and hopefully see before that, but we're going to see miracles like no one has seen. It's going to fill sports stadiums. And by the way, I'm going to be calling a lot of you to come and help. We're going to need people out on the gridiron praying for people. We're going to need ushers. We're going to need people at the doors. We're going to need a lot of people helping. And so I want to say to you again, I think that if you watch Prophecy Club on a regular basis, yeah, I think you should pray for it, and I think you should support it. If you watch it occasionally, support it occasionally. If you watch it faithfully, support it faithfully. That's common sense. That's easy, okay? And I want to close by saying I love you. I look forward to seeing all of you in heaven. We'll know each other. There will not be any introductions. Everyone will know everyone. Everyone. Henry Groover, when he died and went to heaven, he said he saw that the white garment that they wore was alive. And as you got close to someone, their garment communicated with your garment, and you knew everything about them. You knew their name. You knew what they had done for the Lord. There was no introductions. I look forward to seeing you in eternity.